Ladies and gentlemen, we are so excited to introduce what I think is our first guest on the Heroes What We Know podcast, right, Simon?
Yeah, that's right. I think we've had guests, but not branded as this project from an earlier time. But yeah, this is a first for us, so I'm excited. Welcome, Mahia. Great to have you here. Thank you for joining us today.
No worries, thank
Mahia
you.
Mokaraka, representing the Freedom New Zealand movement. Mahia, I'm gonna give you the floor in a second, just to tell us a bit about yourself and how you would describe the Freedom New Zealand movement, please, for the people at home that would not know about this.
Awesome. Hey, thank you for the opportunity to be here and to join your guys' podcast. To Jade and Hannah, nice to see you again, and Simon as well. Thank you for inviting me on to here and to just share a little bit about the mahi that I'm involved with and what we're up to next Saturday over at Auckland Domain, and why we're doing that. Just a little bit about me. So I met Jade some time ago. For those that don't know, I'm also a wheelchair user. So been in a wheelchair since 2006 as a result of a treatment injury. I used to breakdance and injured myself breakdancing, and as a result of that, was sustained a spinal cord injury from T8, T9 down. So that was quite a life-changing moment. But as a result of that, it's kind of moved me into certain areas in terms of like studies and the work that I do on a daily basis. And so I'm also a youth worker. I work for Youthline, and also a trained counsellor. So I do do one-on-one mahi with whānau, with people, young people, adults, and also do youth development programs in schools across South Auckland. So quite busy and quite active. I'm married as well to my beautiful wife, Mariah.
Mm.
We've been married coming up to 2 years. It'll be 2 years in November. So that was gone really quick.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a little bit about me anyway. And
Awesome, man.
I'm
Thank you.
living in Auckland as well. East Tamaki is where I'm currently staying with my wife and I. And some really good close friends of ours.
Thank you for telling us that. So Mahia, over the past week, the reason why you came to my attention for the podcast is you've been extremely vocal about certain feelings that you have about the
Yes.
lockdown settings, about human
Mm,
rights,
yep.
about depression in particular. Um,
Yep.
Tell us why you're passionate about the Freedom New Zealand movement.
Cool. Yeah. So the Freedoms and Rights Coalition is an organization. Well, not really an organization. It is, but it's a group of people who are concerned of with our human rights, what's currently happening at the moment, and the impact of lockdown. Obviously, we have the pandemic and on in New Zealand. But as a result of that, there's been a lot of issues that I've been seeing. As you know, the type of work that I do with people, kind of recognizing the impact on people themselves, with mental health. And I'm lucky enough to be involved with a sector where I'm updated on a regular basis around the impacts of, this lockdown, the lockdowns in the last, 2020 and 2021. And just the issues that's arising from that, with businesses that are closing, the economic crisis that's happening, the impact on families, and you have the suicide rates that are skyrocketing, and and the lockdowns, the impact of lockdowns itself, in the youth sector, the organization I work with, we've seen a big increase of suicide risk in terms of people calling into the helpline. There's also been, higher rates of depression and anxiety that's been, people are seeking support with, and there's a lot of stress happening. And I think I think a key word you mentioned earlier was just a heightened state that New Zealand is in.
Yeah.
you know, emotionally charged, and you know,
Yeah.
there's lockdowns, but also, you know, some of the policies and the legislations that are coming through that are impacting our families and our whānau is quite concerning as well. And that's why we're quite vocal, and that's why we've come together, you know, ordinary, everyday Kiwis, you know, like myself. You know, you've got tradies, you've got business owners, you've got people who have been impacted financially, and also, you know, the employment from the COVID response. And you know, I must say, yep, COVID is there and COVID is real. You know, we have seen the impacts of that, but you know, on a wider scheme of things, you know, there's lots of families, you know, who have lost jobs and businesses. Just the other day, I heard that in Auckland alone, there was going to be 1,000 businesses that will be closing their doors because of the impact of this. And also, I heard, I watched an interview from a guy who was a part of the groundswell with all the farmers, and just some of the impact that, you know, the legislations and policies that are coming through for farmers. It's going to make it even more difficult for them to, you know, produce what they do out in the farming world. So, you know, there's a whole lot of things and the impacts of, you know, some of the decisions that government's making, the lockdown in itself, and just the pressure. It's a one big pressure cooker, is how I see it, because there's a lot of things happening, unfortunately.
Mahia, I don't mind saying that on this podcast we've actually been quite critical of the approach to this virus. We've actually talked about the vaccine at length. We've
Yes.
also we've also had some debate about the lockdown settings and just the fair use
Yeah.
of them. There seems to be such a wide ranging application of them, and like for example, when you're a white couple and you have a house in Wanaka, apparently it's not so bad and we should forgive you straight away. But if you're
Yeah.
a Maori woman trying to attend a tangi,
Oh.
you go to jail. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that's ludicrous, eh? That's ludicrous, you know, especially for our whānau, especially Pacifica and Māori. You know, funerals and tangis are quite an important part of our culture, an important part of our healing, important part of us being a part of our family, being together, being able to console, encourage, and, you know, love on each other, and, you know, just being together. That's a human right that's kind of been denied a lot of our families right
Yeah.
across, you know, not only in New Zealand, but right across the world. So I think, you know, I was even a recipient of, I don't know if that's the right word, but I had an uncle. My dad's father passed away last year during lockdown, and we were stopped at the borders. You know, and the saddest thing about that was there was a bunch of us cousins, first cousins. We were all at the borders up in far north, but my auntie, my dad's sister, couldn't even go through the borders to go and, you know, join the whānau with our tangi, and, you know, be there with our whānau to support and, you know, show our love. And that was quite devastating too. And my dad, you know, lives in Australia, obviously because we were in lockdown and the border controls. Yeah, it's ludicrous. It's not good. It's not good for our whānau, because we don't know the long-lasting scars that that's going to have for those who can't attend their, you know, their whānau tangi, or, you know, go to a funeral. So for me, it's that that's why we're standing next Saturday at Auckland Domain at 11 a.m. because some of those, you know, real basic human rights that we have as Kiwis, as Pacifica, as Maori and migrants here in New Zealand, those have been denied us. And I just saw a video this morning of a young lady, or I think it was a young lady, and, you know, just sobbing and crying because she couldn't join, you know, her mother at the cemetery, and she had to stay at the gates and just watch. And you could just see and hear the just the pain and the agony in there when she was crying and, you know, calling out. So those are the things that are why we're standing. And, you know, like you said, some of the lockdown measures are just ludicrous.
Yeah.
And it needs to change, and there's a lot of people suffering right
So
now because they haven't been able to join family with their funeral processions.
I
So
got a
yeah,
question for you, and then I'm gonna hand over to Simon. Well, comment then a question. So,
cool.
Mahia, I completely resonate with everything you're saying.
Mm.
2 weeks ago, I attended two Zoom tangi.
Oh
Never,
wow.
never in my life did I think I would be watching uh,
Yeah,
funerals of close friends and family on on a Zoom call. Like I
yeah.
was literally watching this all happen on a Zoom call. So completely resonate with that. Before I hand over to Simon to ask any questions,
Cool.
so are you saying to us that you disagree with the level settings? What exactly is the beef as far as your coalition?
So
What's the beef?
there's a whole lot of them because we're talking about our human rights, so like our rights to gather. Like I'm a man of faith,
Mm,
and church is a very important aspect of my well-being. So we can't even gather, but in the human rights and the bill of rights, we have the freedoms to be able to do that, to be at a place of worship where
mm,
that's a quite a big part of my life and my well-being as a Maori, wheelchair user, and those are some of the things that have taken away from us. So that's real drastic,
mm.
and I think those are some of the things that need to change. And I think that's part of the beef too is that a lot of our human rights are being trampled on and denied us. So it's like, hey, yeah, we understand that there's COVID, but your measures that you're using are actually denying us or breaching our human rights. So where do we stand as people now? And why is the state being so controlling over our movements, over our freedoms? It's part of our rights to actually move and be in places and to go out. And those
Mm.
are some of the beefs that I have around with the restrictions at the moment. And I just read in the papers as well. People who were relocating outside of Auckland because they've moved homes for whatever reasons, whether it's for work and that, they can't even go past the borders. And it's like, well, where does the buck stop? Where yeah, I don't know. It's just quite frustrating
And the
to
and the
hear
line
and see that
and the
stuff.
line is, I'll hand over to Simon right now. And the line is, oh, work from home. But what if your job is not capable of that?
Well, that's it. And I saw an article today in the paper where I think it was farmers were saying that they were going to cut people's salary to 80% if they didn't come into work. And and there are some people who casual workers, for example. These lockdowns have affected people who are casual workers who don't get annual leave, or once they've unless level 2 or whatever levels that we go down to, and that impacts their families, that impacts their children. If they have children, that impacts their financial will. Um, yeah, it's things need to change, and I think there's something a lot more sinister behind the scenes that's going on with the state control, from what I see and what I'm observing as well. And we can even look at the education system. The whole control that they're having with what's being taught in schools and what can be said and what can't be said, and the
Oh,
legislations that
give
they're
me an
trying to push
example of
through.
that. Oh, I won't let you run away with a statement like that.
well,
Give us an example of what they're saying in schools.
there are some programs that are coming through around, like, again, this is not, I'm not, and yeah, I'm not anti the community, but there are some strict program or education content around, gender identity, gender sexuality, and that type of stuff. So they really they've come up with what do you call it? Education guidelines in terms of what can be said, what
Yeah.
can be taught, and what can't be taught.
Mm,
And then they talk about the whole conversion therapy
mm,
bill or conversion practices prohibition legislation that's coming through, where even parents, even youth workers, even whānau. So if that bill does go through as an uncle or as a youth worker or as a father or as a counselor or even just as a mentor, talking about gender, sexuality, and that could be banned or could be seen as illegal, and even the rights of our parents, and that's kind of scenarios can be taken away. So that's quite concerning, because we always, us as Freedom and Rights Coalition, we advocate for parents' rights. We want to empower parents to be able to be the source of learning and development and education within the home, an ideal world, and it kind of feels like that. Even parents will get penalized if something like this comes through. That's why we're quite vocal with some of these issues. And like I said, it's nothing against the community. It's just, hey, where's the rights of our parents, and how's that going to affect me?
Can I just jump in really quickly? Sorry. I just want to
Yep.
follow what you just said, Mahia. That is so right. It's also, what is, where is the curiosity of our children? How are we just going to be restricting our children if they can't feel safe to be able to even speak on those things and learn and understand?
I agree with that.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I'm advocating for it too, because I went through that particular bill, and I actually wrote a submission just outlining my concerns as a youth worker, as a counsellor, from a professional perspective, but also from a personal point of view, and because I work in the schools right now, and the dominant narrative right now is, yeah, it's somewhat concerning, because if this bill does go through, then we don't have a voice to stand against the narrative that's already being pushed in the schools right now. So yeah, these are some of the things that we're really concerned about in terms of legislations, bills. But at the bottom of it, we are pro family, we're pro parents. We're advocating for parental rights. We're advocating for youth rights as well. Just the other day, there were schools down in Wellington where there's vaccine buses getting pushed in, and they're trying to vaccinate young people. And for me as a counsellor and a youth worker, the question that comes to mind is, hey, are they giving them good information? Who's providing this information? Are they giving them even sides? Are both sides like the benefits? Is there someone that represents the benefits? The pro vaccinations, and is there someone that has a voice of reason that's saying, hey, these are also some of the dangers and some of the not so good things, some of the risks of vaccination, so that our young people can have a balanced, informed choice. And what I do know too in some schools, especially high schools, is that you have a lot of there are some staff, not all of them, but there are staff that are quite quite dominating in their perspectives and their views. So who protects them as young people, especially if you have a 15-year-old that says, oh no, that's not right, that's not what my parents have told me, or that's not what I know. So who kind of safeguards them? Who looks after them? And those are some of the issues that I see with that stuff. So yeah, very, very, as you can hear, I'm very passionate about that stuff. Very passionate about our young people and making sure that they have that they're not coerced or pressured or bribed or forced or put into a place, because schools can be quite it can be a good environment, but it can be a not so good environment for young people where they may be pressured because of the dominant culture may pressure them into doing something, or peer pressure them into doing something that they may not want to do, but they feel obliged because there's a whole lot of there's a bigger group or a dominant Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, there was an article recently about the schools returning to having more students as alert levels drop, and saying that one day there'll be quite good mask wearing from the students, and then one kid will take it off, and then by lunchtime they've all taken their masks off, and they're not really adhering to what the school wants them to. I mean, if that's just what they're doing for a piece of cloth on their face, imagine
yeah,
if they're taking an experimental vaccination to the
yes,
arm just because they think I don't want to be the only person who might be considered crazy. And that's the
yeah,
other thing. It's not like an honest, fair argument from both sides, because as soon as you show any sort of slight deviation from being completely on board with what's
yeah,
happening, you
yeah,
get demonized and you have no chance
exactly.
of trying to find a balanced middle ground. You just get thrown in the other end, so you end up saying nothing. And then
Yeah,
for the people who don't see examples of people standing up, they relent and they give in.
yeah, exactly. And I suppose that's where I, I see that's a responsibility I have as someone who works in the sectors to ensure that there is a balanced view on not just the vaccines but a whole lot of issues
Mm.
against what they're teaching in the schools and what their rights are as young people, and who's advocating against those who may be using pressuring tactics, or
Mm.
coercing them, bribing them. Hey, there was a school down in Wellington, Taita College. They said that if for every person that gets vaccinated, they get 10 extra points for their house points.
That's so
Um,
gross. That's
It
so
it's
is.
like,
gross. Sorry for
Insane.
interrupting you, but I needed to say that.
yeah, and I've even had a text myself. If you get your vaccination, you'll go in the draw to win $1,000 from one of my local doctors, and I'm thinking, why, why is there such a big push even to offer money, to offer food, to offer gift cards, to offer house points for?
Mm.
Why is there such a push? What are they getting out of it? And I think in this day and world, to say those types of comments can be demonizing in itself,
Yeah.
let alone, oh, so yeah, so these are some of the things that we're concerned about
Yeah.
as Freedoms and Rights Coalition, and this is why right across New Zealand we're making a stand. And we're going to be in Wellington, we're going to be in Rotorua, Tauranga, Whakatane, Hamilton, Christchurch, Nelson. We're going to be Rotorua. Yes, I did say that. We're going to be up in Whangarei. So there's going to be, because of the restrictions in terms of going out of Auckland and coming in, instead of all having it in Auckland, there's going to be um, stands right across the country. And I encourage anyone that might be watching this, and anything that I've said or mentioned that's really resonated with you, or struck a chord with you, and you're like, yes, that's right. Jump on, go there. Second of October next weekend, next Saturday. Or you can jump on the Facebook page, Freedoms and Rights Coalition. Jump on there and follow the information that's out there.
Thanks, Mahia. So, for people who might be considering going along, what is the main objective for the organizers in trying to get people along? Is it to try and get a bit of a community going? Is it to try and to help the community find a group to help them stand up
Yeah,
is it just to try and find a place where maybe people exist where they don't fully
yeah,
support what's happening?
yeah. I think everything you said is why we're doing that, is to kind of kind of bring people in who share the same frustrations, who see what's going on, and want to make their voice seen. Because obviously, a lot of people don't have the opportunity to have their voice heard. So this is a great way of doing that, where they can turn up. As with numbers, that makes a statement in itself, and what we're standing for. Freedoms for our farmers, freedoms for our workforce, freedoms for us as human beings, freedoms for everyone, freedom to choose whether to get vaxxed or not and not be pressured. So those are some of the things that we're hoping to achieve, is to bring people together, so that there's a united voice and people know what we're standing for, and letting government know that the track that they're going down is not okay for a lot of us, and the decisions that they're making is not okay as well, and also the impacts of their decision making is actually affecting a lot of people, everyday people. Yeah,
No,
I don't know
awesome.
if that answered your question. I hope it
Yeah,
did.
absolutely. And I think I've one more thing before I hand over to Jade if he's got any for you. But so the things with lockdowns is that they say they're for our health, right? Is
Yes.
the best way for us to preserve our health is to stay inside and stay away from everybody. Do
Yep.
you, as a person who works in health, right? Like mental health is as important as physical as it is spiritual. You know,
Yes.
if you're from the Maori world, you think of Haora and have the four
Yeah.
dimensions of health, where it's not just about your exposure to a virus is the only important thing in your health. Whether you have regular contact with your family or your
Yeah.
community groups are just as important. Have you noticed, I guess, an example that you want to share where the lockdowns have prevented uh, a more amount of somebody accessing different ways of improving their health that aren't just related to like medical health? You know?
Yeah. Well, what we do know as a result of the lockdowns is the mental well-being of a lot of Kiwis, a lot of people. This and I think this is a worldwide issue as well. You know, the implications of being confined to your house every day, and having the voice of our politicians, or the 1 p.m. Um, what do you call it, hour of sour? I don't know what you call it, but you kind of get deflated watching that after a while. But what we know is human contact. We're social beings. We've never been designed. We weren't designed to be confined to our own homes. We're social beings. Like I've even realized myself how much or how important to my own well-being social connection is with people. And now I'm having to go and see my family, just drive in, stay in my car, and hello, what he's up to, just to get kind of just that human interaction.
Mm.
And as much as I love doing stuff online with Zooms and that, even that's limited in terms of the connection that you get and the well-being that comes from it. So yeah, what we know with lockdowns is mental health has been, the resilience of people has been kind of challenged, because we're confined to our own space, and there's no human contact, no human interaction, social interaction. And so yeah, suicide has also been on the rise as well. So 1 in 5, we had some statistics released just recently, for the year of 2020 and 2021. 1 in 5 texts that came to our helpline was around suicide, and I think 2 in 5 texts that came into our helpline was around suicide risk, anxiety and depression, and self-harm as well. So I think that highlights that a lot of issues take place when we're locked down or
Mm,
confined or isolated. Isolation is one of the key factors that we know in our field. Isolation is a key factors that um, increases the risk of, or the impact of, depression. Because we are social beings. So if we're isolated for a long amount of time, then we are at risk of experiencing the impacts of depression, and what we call lockdown fatigue is
mm.
something that I've learnt, and I've gone through what is lockdown fatigue, and then I'm like, oh man, that sounds like me. I'm like feeling tired, and low motivation to do things, and just frustrated at the lockdowns. So those were some of the symptoms that I found out, and I'm sure a lot of us have experienced that during the
Mm,
lockdowns.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, just we're social beings. We need that. That's for our own mental health, and that's why, like, I went out to Auckland Domain yesterday. Yeah, I did go for a drive, but you know what? There were hundreds of people at Auckland Domain. It was a beautiful day. families, people kicking the ball around, people running, people exercising. Majority of them didn't have masks. There were some that were lining up to get a coffee. Some were just sitting in the shade and just enjoying the beautiful day. And I went there too, and I did some exercise and enjoyed the sun, and was just enjoyed seeing people out and about and happy. And even there was Mr. Whoopi down there, and everyone getting ice cream and just doing everything that we
Yeah.
do as Kiwis, as New Zealanders.
Immensely more healthier for people to be
Yeah,
out there in the sun,
Exactly.
getting some gentle exercise than to be sitting
Yeah.
at home,
In a
safe
nice
from
breeze.
everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah, nice breeze, and you could hear people laughing. See the kids on their bikes, all running around. That's. And I was like, man, this is therapy, or this is self-care, or this is just healing. Just observing that, letting all my senses go wild and experiencing what it's like to be out there enjoying ourselves.
Mahia, I've got some 101 questions for you. So, what would you say to the? Because not everybody likes this show. We have opposing views on here all the time. Don't you guys feel this is getting old now? The lockdown. So we got someone in the chat, Doco420. Don't you feel?
Doco.
Don't you feel the lockdowns are getting old now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is. It's drawn out now. It's played up. I think we need a change, and we need to, Otherwise, what's going to happen? What we do know is that the longer lockdown goes, the more impact it has on people's well-being. And what do we prefer to do? Impact everyone in Auckland's well-being, or open up the restrictions and improve well-being? What we know too is hey, if we improve people's well-being, then they function better and they operate better, and there's better outcomes, and we're healthier. And so that's where I'm looking, is like the longer we stay in lockdown, the more detrimental it is to us.
But then
and yes, there is COVID out there, but
my question was going to be, before Doco came in, my question was going to be, what would your response be to the haters that come into the stream that might say to someone like you, Mahia, this is a public health issue. You just need to put up and shut up and do as you're told?
Well, actually, I got a great response to that, because I know there were some people that were asking from some of my comments that I put on social media and videos that, hey, the organizers of the event spoke with the police the other day, and the police are fully supportive of what we're doing on the day, and fully are going to support us on the day, because there's going to be a big motorcade of tractors, cars, motorbikes that are going to be coming along the motorway. So the police are involved. What they've advised us is to ensure that we're all wearing masks, and that it is a peaceful assembly or peaceful gathering, and that's what we're known for when it comes to creating gatherings. It is a peaceful stand. It's going to be a picnic. It's going to be a whānau event. So we're not going to go out there and throw paint bombs at the police, or cause a big massive riot, or create a violent outcome. We're going there for peace, and you know what? Together, the reason why the police allowed us to go along with this event, or go ahead with this event, is because they knew, and they know that this is our right as citizens, as Kiwi, as Māori, as Pacifica, as New Zealanders, to be able to gather peacefully. And so we're not going to please everyone, but that's okay. Those that are keen to jump on board will come, and I think that gives the public reassurance as well, that if the police are supporting it, then it's okay, because we've had those conversations.
It's interesting you say the police are supporting this, because on my little notepad off to the side that you can't see, getting my questions ready for today, right at the top, was gonna be, aren't you afraid of getting arrested? Aren't you afraid? And even if you're not, afraid of getting arrested, aren't you afraid of how the media might spin it if only one or two people are arrested? Aren't you afraid of the optics?
Nah, not really. I have been arrested in the past for stupid stuff. Things that I just shouldn't have done, obviously because I broke the law.
Yeah.
But if we were to get arrested, but it's not going to happen. But just hypothetically, if we were to get arrested, it wouldn't look too good in terms of why have you arrested us when we're being peaceful, and there hasn't been any aggravation, no violence. So nah, not really. There is no fear there, and I think because we know that the police understand it's going to be a peaceful event, yeah, nah, not at all. Hey, I'd rather get arrested for something that that's around our freedoms and rights than get arrested for trying to bring KFC into Auckland.
I'll just see if Simon's got any questions. Sorry? Fines. You want to ask a question?
So, Mahia, I was, so if you're not arrested, has there been any question about, well, what if the police decide to start handing out fines like they were in level 4 for breaching
the
locations?
$2,000 fine, did you hear about that, Mahia? People that
Oh.
weren't sticking to their bubbles were getting $2,000 fines.
Wow. Oh, that's quite interesting because I saw a whole lot of people yesterday out in Auckland Domain and I'm sure they were in their bubbles. And so I don't think it'll be an issue. Like,
Great.
I personally don't think so because we're perfectly in our rights, and I think that's where the whole fear-mongering has come in as well. Like stay home, you can't go out, but we also have a right to movement in our towns, in our cities, and in our neighborhoods. It's in the human rights. It's part of our Bill of Rights that we can freely move in the land. Obviously with reason. And obviously we can't get through the borders. And that's the thing, with the COVID response act. Oh man, even that's shocking because really restricted people, and it's really pulled the noose over the population of New Zealand of what we can and can't do, and given more powers to the state, and that's rah. So yeah,
I'm gonna pass it over to Simon, but I really want to ask you this, Mahia, because I obviously know you're a youth worker.
Yes.
Why do you think it is that it's not been laid out to Aotearoa's young people that the vaccine only has provisional approval? Why do you think it's not been highlighted that it's not actually completed medical trials yet? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think what people know, that young people are impressionable and will follow what kind of what people in power will say. They that they'll try with adults, but they know that it's a sealed deal if they give young people and like kind of coerce, bribe, whatever they do to try to get people vaccinated. But for me, that's where I'm like, no, where's this other information? You need to give two sides of the argument so that these young people can make an informed choice and an informed decision, and they've got all the information that they need, good, accurate information to make sound decisions. And that's what we advocate as youth workers, is giving young people. And in fact, it's one of the top. So there's 6 principles of youth development, and one of them is good information. Good youth development is giving young people accurate, up-to-date, good information so that they can make sound choices with whatever they want to do with their health and well-being, with their future or whatever. But I think they're trying to pull the wool over our young people's eyes. and they know that young people are a bit more easier to convince or easier to put them into the sheep pen, as to say, are probably more compliant as well. However, that's why there's voices like myself and many who
Mm.
will really encourage them to educate themselves around your rights as a human being, as a young person, your rights as a 15, 16, 18, 19, 12 year old, and stand firm in those, because it's important. And maybe that's part of the reason why too, is that the politicians or whoever at the top um, are hoping that their ignorance of their rights is going to allow them to get away with stuff. But I really think there's some financial um, things involved as well. I'm kind of trying to I've been trying to research, like, how much is each health provider getting for each vaccination. Um, I know
Exactly.
for tests, I know for the COVID, I know for the COVID tests they get I think it's around $280 per test that's completed. So if you times it by 1 million, that's a lot of money for a health provider, or health providers. So I'm thinking, how much money is um, providers or the government getting per vaccine shot? I don't know. It's hard to find that information unless you're in the circles. Yeah,
But yeah,
that's why I think our youth voice is important. And at the I'm advocating, don't forget our young people, don't forget our youth. They're just as important as adults. Don't forget their voice. So we're being very
mm,
vocal in terms of getting youth voices heard around some of the issues that are happening today in our world of New Zealand. And that's why I'm going to be a strong advocate for young people as well, because I want to ensure that they have good, accurate information, and that they're not coerced, they're not forced, they're not pressured, they're not sucked in, they're not bribed, they're not like oh, I feel out of place, so I have to fit in and try and, oh yeah, I'll jump in with you because I'm out of place and go along with what you're doing. So yeah, we want
I
to help them.
cannot tell you how refreshing this conversation is. Simon and I are in violent agreement with most of what you've said today.
Awesome.
This has been a great chat. We're probably looking at needing to wrap in a second. But Simon, any final questions for Mahia before we promote the heck out of what Mahia is doing?
It's I don't know if it's much of a question, but it's more of a bit of an observation and I guess a bit of a message. But yeah, I'm sure you must be following what's going on in Australia. And you can see that publicly they're a few months ahead of the curve because they've had months and months of lockdowns, and their industries are a lot more have been affected than us. But you can see that very recently these what were supposed to be peaceful events have turned not very peaceful once they've been instigated and inflamed by the policing powers that come in to extinguish the protests. And I just
Yeah.
guess, is your team taking any precautions or being aware that potentially you could have all the peaceful intentions that you might have, but it is in the best interests of the state powers that be that they antagonize you until they can paint you as an aggressive group of people breaking
Mm,
COVID rules?
yeah. Nah. Hey, that's a great question. And what I would say to that is, we've been pushing the message amongst the people who have been coming that this is a peaceful march, or not a march, a peaceful gathering, and we're not. Our intent is not to cause any, be violent. Our intent is not to be, yeah, not to kind of demonstrate what's happened around the world in terms of some of the marches or protests that they've done. And we've been quite clear from the get go, and we have also prepared too that if there are people who do turn up who are have other intentions, then
Rack
as
it
long
up.
as, yeah, as long as we are reminding ourselves that we're remaining peaceful. This is not about violence. It is a peaceful gathering. I think there's more to take away from a peaceful gathering than there is from a violent one. And I think we don't know who's going to turn up as well. There may be some who oppose, but what I do know is that there is going to be security there, and I know I'm quite sure. Yes, I'm sure. Yeah, the police will be there too, but it is going to be peaceful, and we have no intentions. If there is any violence or anything, it'll probably be from external people who don't have contact with us, because that is our intention. Because we're going to have kids there, we're going to have families there. It is a family picnic. What I forgot to mention too is that there's going to be the farmers are bringing 10 ton of food, produce from their farms to give away.
That's
That's
amazing.
just their way
Yep.
of
Yeah, respect.
yeah, give it. And then I just heard also yesterday that there's gonna be another 10 ton of food, like eggs and bread and different things. And so we're encouraging people to bring bags, those, because especially at a time like this with lockdown, finances can be a bit tight for some families,
course.
and food can be scarce in some homes. So hey, give it up to all the farmers and some of the charities that are on board that are giving food and providing food. So yeah, it is going to be a peaceful gathering, and we do have a team that's put in place to ensure that that's maintained. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, because there's examples up and down the country, all through history, across the world, of peaceful organizations that have been hijacked and infiltrated by government organizations to discredit them. The apartheid tour here in New Zealand,
Yes.
The anti-Vietnam War movement in the United States, even things like depending either side. So the people from Antifa who protest Black Lives Matters, there's definitely people who are antagonizing those protests to make them violent. And then on the same side of the people who protesting like the American election, a lot of those people that rushed into the Capitol State Building have come out to be federal agents. So it's quite a common tactic. So I hope let's hope they don't try it on Saturday, because it's pretty underhanded, and I hope it's a very peaceful event that goes successful for all of you, and the whole community comes out to get behind the cause and take advantage of some free Kai. That'd be awesome.
Mahia, you've given us almost an hour of your time, which we are extremely grateful. I do have one question, and I'm mindful how pointed this sounds, being the last question of the podcast. But
what they say, the last save the best for last.
Save the best till last. You do realize the media will absolutely vilify you if anybody gets COVID from that event. You realize that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the directives and information that we've been given is that's why they wanted us to wear masks on the day. It was just to take safety precaution. There is going to be sanitizer and obviously all the crowd control, what do you call it, things put in place, safety plans put in place. So that's why police have directly informed us, please bring masks, and but at the same time, and that's it. When our rights are kind of squashed, like it's like, hey, we have this freedom together peacefully, but government and people are telling us this. So it's like that's the dilemma that we have with a whole lot of different things, So that's and I think knowing that the police are going to be there and supporting us is a big plus for us. But I also say for those who do come and want to cause division or want to cause violence, at the end of the day, it's going to show who they are, and it's probably going to highlight how we are as a movement and as people. Because we'll all like you said, Antifa got found out, the federal agents got found out, and if these people that try to come and cause division and cause violence get found out, then it's going to make them look silly, but it actually might make us look good because we've been able to be composed and be peaceful. regardless of whatever the situation is.
Mahia, we've got to wrap now, but before we wrap this interview, tell people how they can get involved and how they can find your movement on the internet, please.
Awesome. So you can jump on Facebook or Instagram, search up Freedoms and Rights Coalition, or look for the hashtags FreedomsNZ, or I forgot the website. But if you go to the Facebook, Freedoms and Rights Coalition. Also next Saturday, 11 a.m. at Auckland Domain. Come and join us if you're in Auckland. If you're in Whangarei, Hamilton, Tauranga, Whakataane, Rotorua, Wellington, Christchurch, Nelson. If you're in any of those locations, there's going to be something local for you if you want to join in as well. And it is for everyday people. It's for the tradies, it's for the nurses, the teachers, it's for us, for those of us who are in the disability community. And I encourage some of us because, one last thing, can I share this?
Sure,
and
go ahead. This is your segment. This is your segment.
Because we are, some of us, like I know Jade and Hannah, we are from the disability community.
Yep.
And, I'm looking, my wife and I, we're trying to buy a house, and it's like, where are all the accessible homes? When
don't get me started, mate. Don't get me
started. Another podcast.
Right, we have a human right to accessible housing. So I'm like, I don't want to have to buy a house that's not accessible and then have to pay more money to get it, renovated.
Barely livable. Yeah, barely livable.
Yeah, being livable for someone that's a wheelchair user, And I'm like, even that alone is like, hey, where's our rights? Where's our voices? Where have we been just pushed to the side and you're over there and I'm like, nah, it's not okay. And that's another angle of why I'm going there next Saturday too, is to stand for us, those who are a part of the disability community. And that irks me. And I've been discriminated from applying for jobs, because I'm in a wheelchair. And they're like, oh, sorry, we can't, we're community based. And and this is a DHB organization.
Oh,
and
wow.
Like, come on, man. And and those are some of the things that I'm standing for too. The discrimination we face as people from the disability community.
Mahia Mokaraka from the Freedom New Zealand movement. It's been so great to have you on the show this evening. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back after these messages from the good people at Twitch.